The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Show you the way. Let me be your shining light. I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try.
This is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Welcome to my show. Today's guest is Jordan Guildford, and she is the founder and CEO of Gems for Gems. Jordan, where are you born and raised?
I was born and raised in a teeny little village in Nova Scotia, on the east coast of Canada. So when I say teeny, I mean teeny. There was 150 people, period.
That's too many.
Probably. Yeah, it's like, what is it, 146 too many? My family was 4. Yeah.
What is Gems for Gems, my dear?
Well, Gems for Gems is a registered Canadian charity that began in 2015, and it began with a very simple initiative, and it was our jewelry drive. Our jewelry drive was founded by a story from my childhood, where we were raised with very little, like heat, hot water, food, all of it was often not available. And this one Christmas when I was 14, I started seeing my mom a little differently, more as a woman. As I started growing up a little bit and seeing the world differently, I saw her in a different light. And that particular Christmas, I had asked my siblings if they wanted to pool our money together, which my grand gave us $20 each to be able to buy each other Christmas gifts. And we would do it at our church bazaar, Christmas bazaar. So, pardon?
I said, oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we would buy toques and mittens and scarves, and we always knew who knitted them. It was always fun, and it was lovely. But this Christmas, so my mom was raising us alone, and this Christmas we pooled our money and we went and we got my mom a bracelet, and it looked like leaves kind of woven together, and it had what we thought were diamonds. Most definitely plastic, but they were pretty and sparkly, and for us it was the most beautiful thing we'd ever seen. So we were so excited to give it to her on Christmas morning, but when we did, she opened it and started crying and just left the room. And we were absolutely mortified, like completely mortified. But when she came back, she had done her hair, done her makeup, and put on her best clothes, and she sat us down and told us how this little piece of jewelry put her back on her own radar. So when I moved from Nova Scotia to Calgary in 2015, I was absolutely blown away by the incredible initiatives for children here, but there was nothing for the moms. And so from my perspective, I knew that if the kids didn't have, the moms typically would have even less. So I told a group of ladies that story, and I decided to collect gently used jewelry, clean it and package it in packages of 3 to 5 items, and give it to women in women's shelters on Christmas morning to try to bring them back on their own radars the same way it had done for my mom. So the first Christmas, and that's where the name Gems for Gems came from. And the first Christmas, I had 3 weeks to be able to collect. And in 3 weeks, the community rallied so much that we collected enough for 436 packages.
Wow.
Yeah, it blew me away. And now, however many years later, 9 years later, we've done 22,000 gifts across Canada. And all from the generosity from women in the public, just going through their jewelry boxes and getting gently used pieces that they don't use anymore, that they won't miss, and giving it to Gems for the ladies in the shelters. So that's the origin story of Gems for Gems. Yeah.
No,
then we've just kind of grown from there.
Yeah, kind of slightly grew, didn't it?
Yeah.
All over Canada.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
let's get on to what you're doing nowadays. You have uh, a Hope's Cradle.
Yeah, so
Is that
so
there?
from the jewelry drive, we started having a lot of people come on board to help us, and um, I didn't want to turn people away, so I started trying to be able to find ways to have the people who are stepping up in the community be able to help through Gems for Gems. So we created a Thrive program that teaches self-defense, preventative self-defense, so
Oh,
mostly safety planning, but also how to get out of holds and stuff like that. It also teaches financial literacy, resilience, and psychological coping skills, all from a psychologist, an accountant, a trained professional in self-defense. And so that was really lovely. But what happened was is that oftentimes around the self-defense,
mhm.
people started asking pretty heartbreaking questions like, what do I do when my kids are watching? What do I do when I'm cornered? What do I do when I can't see because I'm bleeding, like stuff like that. And they kept coming up. And what I realized was so many of these women, even though we were doing the Thrive program in the shelters, they were
Mhm.
all planning on going back, or most of them were planning on going back.
Mhm.
So I put my thinking cap on and tried to come up with a way that we could make it so that remaining outside of the abusive relationship was something that actually felt viable for these women. So that's when I came up with our scholarship program. So
Mhm.
we provide full scholarships to trade schools. And the purpose of the trade school, I went to university, but trade schools are vital in this situation because of the in and out nature of them. So these women can get educated in right around a year and be able to leave with money for first and last month's rent and a car, and to be able to actually look after themselves on their own without the temptation of going back to the abuser because of the financial ties. The other neat thing with the scholarship program is that the nature of trade schools is that it's broken down into smaller components than it is in universities. So you're getting, when you have success in that type of environment, you are getting an increased belief in yourself almost monthly. And that is something that no one can take away from you. So you have that piece of paper, but you have so much more as well. So our scholarship program has been really successful. Every single one of our graduates are now independent business owners. Most of them have been attracted to the Aesthetics Institute, which is here in Calgary, and they are incredible. The team there just scoops up our applicants and are so good to them. Really proud of that. They also match us. So when we pay for a scholarship, they give us a scholarship. So it doubles the impact of the donors who support specifically the scholarship program. So then we also have an ambassador program that stretches across the country and also into the States. Yes. And then during COVID, which I know this is what caught your attention, we launched Hope's Cradle, which
Hope's
is a
Cradle.
safe, yeah, which is a safe surrender location for mothers to be able to have an anonymous alternative to surrender their baby.
Now, where'd you get that idea from?
You know what? There was a really sad, obviously, every single one of these cases are heartbreaking, but there was a really sad case of a baby found on Christmas Eve. And I think it was in 2018. And this case, interestingly, was what behind the scenes had put this idea in my head, put this idea in our board chair's head. And he's a homicide detective. So
What's
the
his
case was
name?
his. Homicide detective Dave Sweet. He's spectacular, really wonderful, kind, compassionate man. But that was his case. So I put it on a different scale for him too, because he saw everything firsthand, which was heartbreaking. But
Mhm.
then what I didn't realize too is that it had also shown up on the radar of a phenomenal man named Eric Alexander. He's a captain in the Strathmore Fire Department.
Huh?
So I started doing research behind the scenes. I saw the safe haven baby boxes in the States, and I started looking at globally what was out there, learning, researching, and I was doing a lot of homework. And then Dave came to me when the case kind of came back into court, and he asked me if there was any chance that Gems for Gems could do something here. And I was elated and I said, oh my gosh, heck yes, I've already been doing research. I'm all ready to go. Literally just give me a day. I'll prepare something for our board and then we'll pitch it. And I prepared it and we pitched it, and 100% unanimous. Our board was so excited to be able to do something and show up here. So we got to work, but we were trying to be able to get it across the line with hospitals, because in my mind, why would we not go to the end place where babies are 100% of the time are going to be brought to? So fire stations, they can respond to the baby, but then the baby is inevitably going to be brought to the hospital. So that was our idea, but then it was the worst time in history to try to do that because it was COVID. COVID just broke out. So it was awful. And we spent 2 years trying to be able to get this across the line. And more babies kept coming in and kept being called in. So finally, I got frustrated and was like, we have to do this another way, because to me, every baby that came in was now on us differently than what it was before, because we knew what the right thing to do was. And we were trying, but we knew that we were falling short and not providing an alternative for these mothers. So I put the feelers out for fire stations, and almost immediately I was connected with Eric Alexander. Yes. And then within 2 months, we launched our first one. So that's how it started. And it was really amazing how that one story was what had been mulling around for all three of us, Eric, Dave, and I. And then 3 years after that, we launched our first Cradle.
Where is that? Where was it launched?
In Strathmore, Alberta.
And you have another one coming up?
We actually just launched another one in Manitoba, which is very exciting. I know Manitoba is talking about getting a second one as well. Ontario, it has, I think, 4 on their radar. I know Nova Scotia is chatting with us. There's seven provinces across Canada that are actively talking with us, and then of course around Alberta, and we're in discussions with many locations around Alberta. So it's very exciting, and it's the positive side of something so heartbreaking, but it certainly feels good to be able to provide something that can make a meaningful difference. So
the way the laws are in Canada, abortion and all, that's sad. And
yeah, it certainly is an incredibly polarizing time, and that's exactly the opposite of what we seek to do with Gems for Gems. We, in every way, we want to be able to unify. We unify men and women. So, for instance, our ambassador team has a lot of men and women on it, because to me, it takes both sides of the equation to be able to make real change. And if we don't have everyone coming together, then no change actually gets made in any sort of lasting way.
Why did you call it Hope's Cradle?
Well, so we actually went to our ambassador team to give them the opportunity to name this initiative. And we had 63 different names that our ambassadors put forward. And this is the one that we chose. And hope was super important to us, because to us, that's everything, and no matter what dark place you're in, if you have hope, you have a way forward. And then the cradle side of it, we loved, because we really want the mothers to really feel that this is a warm, inviting, safe place. And again, like, I do think words are very powerful. And we wanted to be able to create a feeling around Hope's Cradle of safety and security. Yeah. And not just for the baby, but for the mother. So for us, we look at 2 parts of this equation on that side. We very much care about the mother's experience, and we very much care about the baby's experience as well.
Do you have counselors working along with you?
Yes, actually. So our whole setup was created in conjunction with heavily working with psychologists, counselors, legal team, and yeah, we had a lot of hands on deck to be able to create what we have created, including the package of resources for the mom. Another thing that we have in our resource package is a guided letter, so that the mom can send in her final wishes or thoughts to her baby. Yeah.
Give the baby a name?
It maybe, I don't know. I think it will depend on the mom. But I think, um, I know again from the child's perspective, when there's closed adoptions, which is I think the most comparable to this situation once the baby has been saved, is there's a lot of identity crises. So we're trying to be able to do whatever we can to alleviate that. So there's a medical form for her to be able to fill out, as well as for resources for her. But fill out for about her, and then also any information she has about the father medically as well, so that that baby has as much as we possibly could give them, from a very unknown
medical
source.
history.
Yeah, medical history, the letter. We're trying to be able to create something to at least soften the potential for the identity crisis that sadly is very prominent in closed adoption situations.
If the mother wants the baby back like a week or so later after surrendering her baby to the baby box, does she have to be screened, or can she get it back, the wee one?
Yeah, so she has a month to be able to regain custody of her baby. And obviously, the really wonderful thing about Hope's Cradle is that by her choosing Hope's Cradle, she has avoided any criminal charges against herself because it's a safe surrender location. But she would obviously have to explain why. Yeah, and not publicly, not to us, not to anything like that, but it would be a private discussion with children's services. And but I do know that the desire would be always that if a mother came, for instance, if she was in a dangerous position and her baby was in a dangerous position, and she chose Hope's Cradle to get a temporary relief for the baby from that, and then she created a safe environment, they would want to put the baby back with her. Yeah, so I hope that Hope's Cradle is not just an alternative to a dumpster and alleys and ditches, which is what has been happening. I hope that it becomes a place that women know that if you are actually fearing for the life of your baby or the safety of your baby, that temporary relief, anonymous temporary relief, is also a part of Hope's Cradle as well, which I hope that I sincerely hope that is utilized like that, because too many times you hear about ongoing abuse, and mothers haven't known what to do, and they don't want to lose their baby, they don't want their baby taken away from them, so the abuse continues. And I do think it's a heartbreaking situation, period. And on one hand, it's really easy to villainize women for allowing things to happen, but what I know from what we do with domestic abuse is that abuse completely scrambles your head, and things that even a year before, 6 months before, that you never would have allowed happening, suddenly you find yourself allowing, and then you're afraid, and it changes the chemistry of your brain, and yeah. And so for us,
Can't think clearly when you're abused.
Yeah, and I have a lot of sympathy for that, a huge amount of sympathy for that. And I mean, even when it comes to abortion, I think that it is a topic that is obviously very polarizing, and but the bottom line is that I do understand when people can't think straight, and when I know that abuse really scrambles people up a lot. And yeah, so we want to be able to I have sympathy for the moms at all times, and I really want to be able to be a safe place for the moms and the babies.
How does the box work, my friend? Do you have a box there, dear?
Pardon?
Do you have a box there, or filming of the box, how it works?
Yeah, so if you look on our Instagram and on our Facebook, we have a lot of different, and on our website too, we have a lot of information on it. But you can basically, the way it works is that you walk up to the cradle, and there's instructions on the door. You open the door, and a silent alarm goes off, so the mother cannot hear that. But what that does is notify the dispatch that the Hope's Cradle door has been opened. After about a minute, a secondary alarm that is very soft goes off. And the whole point of this is specifically for the mother so that a firefighter doesn't come while she's saying goodbye to her baby and all of that. So, again, to the humanity for both the mother and the baby are very paramount for us. So that secondary alarm would go off. She would take the envelope with all the resources for her. And then once she closes the door, it locks. So the door cannot be
open it and grab it.
She can't, or more importantly, to someone else trying to steal a baby or anything like that can't as well. So we really tried to look at this from every possible angle. The door is incredibly secure, so it can't be broken in, which is great. And then within minutes, a firefighter will be there, or EMS or whatever. First responders.
Question,
Yes.
my dear.
Yes.
Is there a sign where the door is with instructions for the young lady?
Yes. On the door, there are the steps, and one of the steps is to take the envelope, and it explains everything to the mom about what the experience is going to be as soon as she opens that door, so that there's no surprises. And yeah.
How long does it take to make one of those boxes and put them in the fire house?
Well, it can depend. We're actually we're looking at some different ideas now, but typically the turnaround can be very, very quickly. If you engage with us, it could be under a month. But we're looking at being able to streamline things so that we can ship out packages as opposed to having to get a lot of bits and pieces along the way. So as we establish this further and further, it will be quicker and easier on our side as well. At the moment, for instance, for Winnipeg or for in Landmark, our team went out and they constructed everything. So ideally, what we're trying to be able to do is create a structure so that all they have to do is bring it out there, plug it in, and then build the cabinetry around it. So
is there a light in there so they can see the baby being put in?
Yeah, there's actually also a camera pointed at the baby as well. So not at the mom, but at the baby. Yeah, so that we can see, and so that anyone who is connected with the fire station security system can see if the baby's in distress, can all of that. So as soon as that door, now we can start gathering as much information to be able to help that baby as we possibly can. So that was something important to us.
Where'd you get the baby boxes idea from?
My research led me first to Europe, because that's where they were in abundance prior to, I can't remember the date, but they were everywhere in Europe. And then the UN decided against them and they were all taken away. And the reason for this, which I find absolutely mind-boggling, was that it was considered a violation of the child's rights to knowing their parents. Which, so when I hear that type of thing, and interestingly, that comes up not often, but with some regularity. And what we always say is, I'm not saying that every child doesn't have a right to knowing their biological history and all of that, but the right that supersedes that right for us is the right to a heartbeat. And that's what we're focused on, is keeping that heart beating, and everything else is important, but secondary to that. So that was one of the things. And the other reason that the UN gave as a reason to not have it is that it would encourage infant abandonment, which is, again, a crazy one to me, because I'll tell you this story, which I find very fascinating. Dave Sweet, our board chair, who's a homicide detective, was working a case, and when he put a call out to the public, it was a case where the baby was found deceased. So as a homicide detective, it's obviously that those are what comes on his desk. And he reached out to the public for their help locating the mother, because of course, when the baby's deceased, now it's a criminal act. And there were 10 or 12 mothers identified who were pregnant, are no longer pregnant, and no baby, all at one time. So Dave really feels that the babies that are located are just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, it is typically complete random finds.
They're
The
not
last one,
disposable. Babies are not disposable.
but they are very easily disposed of. Do you know what I
That's
mean?
because
It's
mother
very
doesn't.
easy to hide it.
It's
So it's a very unlucky find,
mm,
because they're so little, right? Which is so sad. I know it's so sad. I am aware of what we're talking about, and it's heartbreaking. But for instance, the last one that was found in Calgary was found because a homeless person was looking for food in a
uh-oh.
dumpster, in a dumpster, right? So, but if that homeless man hadn't picked that dumpster, that baby would never have been found. So, how many others are out there that just never get found because stars, especially when you look at rural locations, right? There's just much less homeless people who are going through garbage bins and looking in different places, right? So it's typically very unlikely that the babies would be found. So, as far as the UN's comment about having it encourage infant abandonment, even if the numbers suddenly soared of babies being placed into the cradles,
Yeah.
all that means is that those babies that were not being found are now being placed in a safe location. It doesn't mean that it is encouraging it. It's just stopping a problem that we didn't have any real understanding of the scope of. It's a heartbreaking. I mean, our world feels completely upside down right now too. Like I don't know what you're aware of, but in Canada, MAID, uh, for children
Infantile.
who, yeah, but MAID, medical assisted death, medical assistance in death, is now being deliberated for children, for mature minors who are depressed. And I mean, yeah, they have to have two signatures, but I mean, I think everyone knows there's any doctor who's pro this. Like, obviously, there will be doctors who are easier to get signatures and doctors who are not as easy. But even if you let that aside, there have been veterans who have been looking for help, and the psychologist that they reached out to for PTSD and whatever else they had suggested that they look at medical assisted death as opposed to, yeah, and these are people who want to live. There's a homeless man or a man who is not homeless, who's facing homelessness, but he has some sort of medical illness that he can't live on the streets, and he doesn't have the same ability to be able to get scrappy and look for a new home and all of that. I think it was some sort of back issue, but he's applied and has been accepted for medical assisted death. He wants to live. This was on the news. He wants to live. He says he wants to live, can't live on the streets, and that's all that is in front of him. So instead of us doing something to be able to help him live and have a home, we're helping him die.
Death
That's
culture.
so,
Death culture. I don't like that.
yeah, it's crazy to me, and it's kind of come on my radar in a different capacity now than it perhaps would have even a few years ago, because here I am on one side fighting for that baby to be able to survive. And then on the other hand, we're taking kids who don't even have the legal right to drink a beer and helping them, yeah.
What would you like to share with my audience?
If you have something that you're passionate about, create it. Go and create it, or look for someone who has created it and make it better. Help them make it better.
Get involved with other people.
Yes. Yeah.
Your love out of this.
Yeah.
This is Patty Hunter, Patty's Page. Thank you for coming on to my show, Jordan Guildford. So we'll see you next week, and hope to have you on again, girl.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Peace be with you. God bless. See you next week.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love.
us always and for the rest of all our